Number 10. Nuclear Man. Regarded by many as one of the strangest and most half-baked Superman villains to date, Nuclear Man hasn't had too many appearances outside of his introduction in 1987 Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. He was created by Lex Luthor from a strand of hair containing Superman's DNA, which he threw into a genetic stew. Superman is actually the one responsible for this villain's birth though, as he wasn't fully born until Superman threw the nuclear missile containing the device that had the stew in it into the sun. Having been created using Kryptonian DNA, he possesses powers similar to Superman, such as invulnerability, energy projection, flight, and of course the standard super strength and speed. However, Nuclear Man needs to have constant exposure to sunlight in order to use them. If he's left out of the sun for too long, he becomes completely immobilized and must wait for some more sunlight in order to recharge. In the movie, Superman stopped Nuclear Man for good by causing a sudden solar eclipse when he moved the moon in front of the sun, then dropped him into the heart of a nuclear reactor where he could become an abundant source of energy for the remainder of his days. Now, like I said before, Nuclear Man hasn't made too many appearances outside of Superman 4, but if you want to see him in comic book form, check him out in his one-off appearance in 2018 Superman Volume 5, Number 2. Number 9. Microwave Man. Louis Paget from Earth 1, known as the costume baddie Microwave Man, has a pretty interesting story despite only appearing in 2 issues back in 1978. Paget spent 40 years traveling around the galaxy aboard an alien spacecraft before returning back to Earth in October of 1978. Now, not much is known about his life before his interstellar journey other than the fact that he was already known as the villain Microwave Man. Upon his return, Paget calls upon his alien friends one last time to grant him back his youth, even though doing this would shorten his remaining life to only a few more hours. This didn't seem to bother him, and once he was young again, Paget assumed the identity of Microwave Man once more and challenged Superman. Now, Paget's alien friends inform Superman that he only wants the glory of defeating him and will die very soon, so Superman, like the upstanding good guy that he is, allows Paget to defeat him in a test of strength, after which he dies satisfied, and the aliens come to claim his body to set adrift in space as he had once requested. Making his first appearance in 1978's Action Comics number 487, why not check his short run out for yourself. Number 8. The Puzzler. So little is known about either version of the Puzzler, so don't feel bad if you're not familiar with this character or just generally don't know who they are. The first to take up this name was Valerie Van Haften, a longtime admirer of Superman and someone who wanted nothing more than to get his attention, so she had the idea of becoming a heroine with the intent of one day joining his team. This proved to be a lot harder than she thought, and she quickly turned to crime instead and eventually joined the likes of the Secret Six to get a Get Out of Hell free card. Her powers are actually pretty cool, as she's made up of a bunch of indestructible puzzle pieces that she has full control over, allowing her to deconstruct at will and even fling the pieces at her opponents like a bullet. Now, the second Puzzler is from the Prime Earth and is actually known as Puzzler Bot, a creation of that universe's puzzler that mimics the abilities of its creator through technological assimilation. That's about it when it comes to these characters, so if you know any more, please let me know in the comments below, but in the meantime, check them out for yourself in 2002's Superman Volume 2, number 187, and 2013's Justice League of America Volume 3, number 3.
Number 7. Owlman. Pretty much everything about Owlman from Earth 3's crime syndicate is unexpected. He's the evil counterpart to Batman, but is not Earth 3's version of Bruce. Instead, he is Thomas Wayne Jr., who on his Earth was Bruce's older brother. He himself plotted to kill his parents as he believed they were mismanaging their wealth, which would of course end up being his inheritance. In the end, Bruce refused to help Thomas and even attempted to convince him to halt his plot. So Thomas Jr., saddened, was forced to kill his brother, having had much higher hopes for young Bruce. Thomas would then become Owlman and use a combination of fear, wealth, and influence to take control of Gotham. Still missing his brother, he decided to find someone to fill that hole in his heart. After meeting Dick Grayson at the circus, Thomas orchestrated the death of his parents in secret and then offered him support and a home, manipulating him into becoming his sidekick, Talon. Yeah, pretty shocking stuff. Number 6. Hush. Hush has managed to pull off some of the most horrific schemes over the years and gotten under Batman's skin many times, and Catwoman's skin even, when he literally stole her heart. Thomas Elliot is not only a powerful villain because of his intense vendetta against the Wayne family and Batman, but because he also is often shown to have the skill and strength to match Batman, as well as the cunning. He has taken Batman in hand-to-hand combat and fared surprisingly well, and he's managed to set into motion outlandish plots like impersonating Bruce Wayne by giving himself plastic surgery to make himself look nearly identical, then capturing and threatening the real Bruce Wayne with murder and disfigurement so that he could ultimately take his place.
Number 5. The Prankster. Once the extremely popular host of the Uncle Oswald show, Oswald Loomis became the prankster after his show was cancelled and ultimately ended his career in comedy. His first assault on Metropolis was an all-out barrage of practical jokes that ended in his surrender. After a while, Loomis resurfaced with a much younger and athletic body thanks to selling his soul to Lord Satanus, and this changed everything. With a more serious personality and affinity for dangerous tricks, Loomis basically became a slightly less twisted version of the Joker, and his only goal was to make the world laugh via his own twisted ways. When Metropolis was taken over by Brainiac 13, he took advantage of all the futuristic tech available and upgraded his existing gadgets, which proved to be pretty effective against even the likes of Superman. However, this was probably because the Man of Steel was suffering from kryptonite poisoning at the time and did not have full access to his powers. Skip ahead a little bit to when the Joker took over the world and we meet a slightly altered Halloween mask wearing prankster who acts as Joker City's exorcist, whose goal is to expel the evil from those who still believe in science. Thankfully for everyone out there, he was eventually apprehended by Superman and taken to Belle Reve to serve his time for all his crimes. Having made his first appearance all the way back in 1988 Superman Volume 2 number 16, give his story a read for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 4. Lois Lane Robot. On New Earth and during his quest for the power he lost in Blackest Night, Lex Luthor decided it was a good idea to take a Brainiac probe stored in LexCorp and a sample of Lois Lane's DNA to create a robotic version of her that would serve as his quote-unquote conscience. Unfortunately for him, before he was able to complete the programming, he was held hostage by some bandits under the control of Mr. Mind, and he himself was put into a mental illusion. The Lois Lane robot was functional enough though to activate all of its weapon systems, allowing it to take out all of the thugs and bring Luthor back into reality. Armed to the brim with state-of-the-art technology and weapons, her robotic android body allows her to repair any damage received, and also gives her the ability to fly alongside super strength, durability, and speed. Now, not long after their run-in with Mr. Mind, Luthor, Deathstroke, and Lanebot head to Antarctica to find a black orb that is somehow related to the Black Power Ring energy. The effects of this orb were enough to cause Deathstroke and his men to completely lose control and attack one another. However, Lanebot was not affected as she is inorganic. That was the last time we saw the Lois Lane robot, so until they grace the comic book pages once again, check them out in their first appearance in 2010's Action Comics number 890. Number 3. Terra Man. Tobias Manning, aka Terra Man, was once a businessman who one day realized just how much damage he was causing to the Earth and its environment. With his newfound conscience, Manning took up a personal vendetta against any company that was causing damage to the environment. Using weapons that focused on turning the environment around his enemies against them, he has caused some serious damage in the name of the Earth, and that earned him a spot on the Secret Society of Villains during the events of Infinite Crisis. Even after this catastrophic event, Terra Man continued his nefarious ways by hijacking a plane over the Middle East. Thanks to Black Adam, he escaped both harm and capture for this crime. However, in hindsight, teaming up with Black Adam probably wasn't the best idea for him, because when Black Adam later appeared to address the media in front of Kahndaq's New York embassy, he ripped Terra Man in half with no warning, and that was the end of this nature-loving villain until he was resurrected during the events of the Blackest Night. Why not give his story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1990's Superman Volume 2, number 46. Number 2. Hellspawn. Although he was originally created as the nemesis of the Wildcats in the Wildstorm universe, Hellspawn made his way onto the villain roster for Superman when that universe was brought into the DC universe in the New 52 relaunch. As a Daemonite, Hellspawn possesses a ridiculous amount of powers thanks to his alien physiology, such as, but definitely not limited to, chronokinesis, accelerated healing, and telepathy, and when combined with his Akurian host body, he is shown to possess super strength and speed that are able to outmatch even the Man of Steel himself. Hellspawn made his first documented move against humanity by trying to start a nuclear war between the most powerful nations on Earth in order to allow humanity to destroy itself so the planet would be empty for the Daemonites. However, this plan didn't really pan out as he was stopped by Team 1 and Mr. Majestic. In the rebooted Wildstorm universe, Hellspawn is now a super evolved living hive mind because apparently when the number of Daemonites reaches a certain number, a central mind is created. Hellspawn now has the knowledge and intelligence of every member of the entire Daemonite race, and its synthetic body is a rad looking mix of flesh, metal, and fire. Thanks to this, he has moved into a league of his own when it comes to power. However, we are still waiting to see it all in action. Now, I did have to skip over a lot of cool stuff regarding this character, so check out his story for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1992's Wildcats number 1. And coming in at number 1, we have Conduit. Kenny Braverman was, funnily enough, born on the same day that Superman's ship arrived on Earth. His fate was not exactly as lucky as our Man of Steel's. While his parents were on the way to the hospital, they ended up having to pull over to the side of the road due to the heavy storm, and he was born curbside, incredibly close to Clark's ship, and the exposure to the kryptonite caused some side effects that would manifest later in life. All throughout their younger years, Clark and Kenny were rivals, competing in everything from sports to girls, and this probably caused some serious self-esteem issues for Kenny Kenny because Clark always seemed to come out on top. After high school, Kenny went on to join the CIA and grew more and more reckless as his dormant abilities started to change his personality. Turns out Kenny's body is basically a living conduit for all energy, and it can process, manipulate, and even generate forms of energy in many destructive ways. Upon realizing this, Kenny took up the mantle of conduit and decided it was finally time to get his revenge on Clark. However, all of his attempts seemed to fail. Later confronted by Superman, Kenny deduced that Clark and the Man of Steel were one and the same, which was perfect for him because they were literally the only people he wanted to kill. So, he set all his sights on getting rid of Superman. Kenny manages to catch Superman and traps him in a mock version of Smallville, and the two face off one-on-one in a replica of their childhood football stadium. Unfortunately for Kenny, he succumbed to his madness and supercharged himself with kryptonite energy, effectively overloading his powers and killing him in the process. Why not give Conduit's story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1994's Superman, The Man of Steel #0, and let me know what you think in the comments below.
Number 10. Parasite. First appearing in Firestorm Volume 2 in 1987, Parasite is a twisted, energy-sucking, vampire-like beast who feeds on energy to live. He absorbs the life force of mortals, leaving behind a withered, empty husk. Originally, his need to absorb was satiated with regular civilians, but up against a foe like Superman, his absorption also allows him to sap the powers and memories of his victims. This means he absorbs Superman's powers, but also becomes more deadly every time he goes up against the superhero. He also keeps the knowledge he absorbs during these encounters, meaning he is aware of Superman's secret identity. One interesting aspect of his power, he can only sustain a certain amount of superpowers at one time, or else previous powers will be disabled. This process causes him to go through body changes and power fluctuation. You know, like when you teach a new move to your Pokemon. If that wasn't enough, in his early origin, he had a wife and family he could never touch again, adding a tragic emotional element to this epic villain. Number 9. Metallo. John Corbin was a critically injured man saved from death by a scientist named Emmett Vale in an experiment that turned him into a cyborg. The scientist was obsessed with the idea that Superman was leading an alien invasion, so when he happened across to John, dying from injuries sustained in a car crash, he takes him back to his lab and he puts his brain into a cyborg body powered by uranium. He then tasks him with killing Superman, and John becomes Metallo, named after the alloy his new form is made with. The uranium core is later replaced with a kryptonite heart to help him kill Superman. With the ability to shoot destructive kryptonite blasts, Metallo knows how to keep Superman busy. At one point, he sells his soul to a demon to upgrade his powers even further. He has incredible abilities granted by his cybernetic body, including enhanced senses and accelerated probability, allowing him to perform quick maths, rapidly processing to predict the most probable outcome of any given situation down to the second. This dude has got a serious hard drive. Hey Nerd Squad, if you like our videos and you want to see more, please take a second to hit that like button, really helps us out. Number 8. Mongol. Mongol first appeared in Adventures of Superman in 1989. He's an evil alien dictator, the tyrannical overlord of War World, an artificial satellite that travels the galaxy collecting slaves for gladiator-style combat tournaments. Superman is picked up and brought to War World, where he wins again and again until he's pitted up against Draga, the undisputed champion of War World. This place is crazy. It's like Rome mixed with WWE, and Superman is Stone Cold Steve Austin. After the Man of Steel defeats the champ, Mongol is not pleased and he teleports down to face off against Superman himself. He eventually knocks Superman unconscious, but rather than instantly killing him while he has the chance, he chains Superman up and prepares to execute Draga, the former champ. Superman breaks out of his bonds and fights back, but Mongol almost blasts Superman into oblivion with his ray blaster on his chest. Superman is saved, however, when a mysterious being named Cleric teleports him off to safety. Mongol nearly defeats Superman, and that lands him here at our number 8 spot. Number 7. Bizarro. Alright, so one time the Joker possessed the 5th dimensional powers of Mr. Mixie, and he created his own insane version of Superman. I'm sure you've heard of him already. Bizarro is like a dark Superman, a shadow self or opposite version of the Man of Steel. The Man of Iron? No, it's already taken. He has mostly the same powers as Superman, except with Arctic vision instead of heat vision, and flame breath, and you get the idea. The original newspaper version of Bizarro included the iconic Bizarro speech patterns, with all Bizarro's comments meaning the opposite of what he says. Having nearly the same skills as Superman, he would be a pretty serious threat to Superman if it weren't for his inferior mind. The people of Bizarro World aren't the brightest. The Bizarro concept has spawned a lot of cool storylines for DC though. You're not a real DC superhero until you've got a Bizarro version of yourself running around. Funny story, Bizarro was once captured and tortured by General Zod, apparently only because he looks like Superman. Number 6. General Zod. Like Bizarro, General Zod is a similarly dark reflection of the Man of Steel. Zod has appeared many times, hell-bent on the destruction of Earth to rebuild Krypton. As a fellow Kryptonian, he has mostly the same powers as Superman, making him an enormous threat to Superman and to the world. He has appeared infrequently since the Crisis on Infinite Earths, a mind-bending event rewriting much of DC's entire history. Zod cares very little about others, including his own race. Everything he does is part of some masterful, self-serving evil scheme. If Superman were to turn evil and attempt to dominate the Earth, General Zod gives us a pretty good idea of what that might look like.
Number 5. Master Jailer. The Master Jailer, aka Death Trap, worked for Star Labs in creating cells for superpowered individuals. He is incredibly smart and was asked to try and figure out a way to hold Superman in the cell, but proved he couldn't do it. That didn't stop his obsession with trying to figure out how he could one day trap the Man of Steel in one of his cells, though. He found out Superman's identity, Clark Kent, and wanted to try and go after his friends as a way to get him to cooperate. He also teamed up with some of Superman's longtime foes, but he was never able to fully capture the Man of Steel like he always wanted. Number 4. Atomic Skull. So Atomic Skull was created back in the 1970s and has faced Superman numerous times. So basically, Joseph Martin got hit by a gene bomb and became Atomic Skull. His powers include super strength, gives off huge amounts of radiation, and has a flaming radiation type skull for his head. Now, as scary as this guy is, these powers definitely took their toll on Joseph as he started getting brain damage. The damage sort of led to Joseph to change his persona to Atomic Skull. He is known to be quite erratic and can be quite violent due to some hallucinations. Number 3. Cancer. This is definitely an interesting villain and one for sure I definitely had not heard of at all. So somewhere down the line, Superman developed cancerous cells. When they removed the actual cells from Superman's body, what do? What do you know? We got our villain Cancer. Yes, he came to life from the removal of these cancerous cells in Superman's body. Since he came from Superman, he has most of Superman's powers, as well as being able to completely destroy a human body with just a touch from him. Since he is connected to Superman, he has weird issues about him being his father or whatnot. So, it's a little bit strange. Number 2, Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace was created in the 1980s and has the power of mind control, and with that power, she can manipulate others. Amazing Grace works with a villain known as Darkseid as his agent. So she basically lives amongst the people of Apocalypse and tries to root out who are the most unloyal to him and who would betray him in an instance. She finds these people and basically betrays them once they show their true colors. She has done this with Superman in the sense, by luring him in to save her when really she did not need saving at all. It was just a ploy to manipulate him and to make him believe that he was Darkseid's son, which he actually believed. In the end, Orion, Darkseid's true son, who they were waging war on, used the Mother Box to give Superman his mind back. Number 1, Super Menace. Super Menace is definitely one of the most out there villains that you probably haven't heard of. The origin of Super Menace is that when Superman got sent to Earth in a spaceship from Krypton, his spaceship collided with another alien spaceship, which was Super Menace's. What happened from that collision was Superman's spaceship got copied and duplicated into this other one, creating the persona Super Menace. He landed with parents that definitely were no Martha or Jonathan Kent, and instead of growing up loved, he grew up in a not so good household where he ultimately became a villain. The Superman.
Number 10. James Gordon Jr., also known as X-Strike. James Gordon Jr. is a sociopath who in the New Earth continuity believed that empathy made you weak and set out to prove as much to Batman. While he is just a sociopathic murderer who enjoys hurting other people, James also happens to have a genius level intellect, which is obviously a pretty deadly combination. In the story Black Mirror, he set out to administer medication he had made to infants which increases psychotic tendencies, a medication he himself was using, supplementing the meds that would have helped to subdue those tendencies and calm those instincts within him. It took a while before the Bat family or the Gordons managed to figure out that something was not right when James returned. Although at least his dad, Commissioner Jim Gordon, had instincts that something was pretty much up right away and decided to follow those, which ultimately allowed James's plot to be uncovered and for him to be apprehended in the end. In the Prime Earth continuity, he was part of the Suicide Squad and was known for being their analyst. James also seems to be one of those villains who dies in stories but then always somehow comes back. I feel like he's done that at least a couple times, so although he's dead right now, he'll probably come back at some point. If I was writing, I'd bring him back. I like James Gordon Jr. Number 9. Holiday. Holiday has to be one of the most unexpected villains in Batman and Gotham's rogue gallery, and an accomplished unexpected villain at that. Holiday was a serial killer who seemed to be targeting the criminal mob family known as the Falcones with his targets. However, then the Maroni family was also targeted, another massive crime family in Gotham. This created a lot of tension between Sal Maroni and Carmine Falcone, the head of both families respectively. However, in the end, Holiday wiped out not just many of the people and members of the Falcones, but also killed various members of the Maroni family as well, with the killings taking place on holidays. In the end, Batman and Jim Gordon managed to apprehend Holiday, but only after he had successfully killed Sal Maroni on Labor Day. Holiday turned out to be the youngest son of Carmine Falcone, Alberto, who wanted to prove himself and get revenge for being excluded from the family business. Although in reality, this was pretty much done to protect him. Wow, that's unfortunate. Holiday would later face off with Calendar Man, and after being wounded, would be smothered to death by his sister. Tragic. Number 8. Calendar Man. Well, of course I gotta put Calendar Man above since he beat Holiday, and that's how it goes. For a guy that pulls off crimes inspired by different holidays, seasons, and calendar dates, Calendar Man can actually be surprisingly successful and terrifying. In his first encounter with Batman, Calendar Man managed to pull off 4 crimes successfully before he was caught. Aside from that, over the years, Calendar Man in the comics has taken his crimes to the next level, even going so far as to murder families as part of a Thanksgiving Day crime spree, sitting down to steal a plate of dinner after successfully wiping out an entire targeted family. That is pretty dark. Of course, Calendar Man's weakness tends to be similar to Riddler's, namely that he leaves clues as to how to capture him often, and we always know his crimes will revolve around notable days in the calendar, so makes it pretty easy to watch out for him. Like, is a holiday coming up? Well, we should probably watch out for Calendar Man.
Number 7. Bloodsport. Now, unfortunately, a cool name doesn't always make for a cool villain. We've seen a few of Lex Luthor's henchmen take up the name Bloodsport, but let's focus on the first, Robert Dubois. Dubois suffered a mental breakdown after his brother had taken his place in the Vietnam War and became a quadruple amputee, resulting in Dubois spending 12 years bouncing between various psychiatric hospitals. Somehow, an agent of Lex Luthor persuades Dubois that Superman is to blame for all his troubles, causing him to adopt the name Bloodsport and go on a needless rampage in downtown Metropolis. Equipped with basic hand-to-hand combat skills and some unnamed tech from Luthor that allowed him to summon any weapon he desired from a remote location, Dubois caused some serious damage before being subdued after his brother confronted him. He spent several years in Stryker Island's penitentiary before Alex Trent, the person who took up the name Bloodsport after him, was brought to his attention. Believing it was the healthiest way for the two to work out their problems, the warden set up a boxing match between the two with Superman as the referee. However, things got out of hand pretty quickly and a riot broke out that allowed Dubois to escape. His freedom didn't last very long though, as he was quickly shot down by a prison guard. Check out his story for yourself, starting with 1987 Superman Volume 2, Number 4. Number 6. Bruno Mannheim. Bruno Ugly Mannheim had the honor, or I don't know, maybe dishonor depending on how you look at it, of being introduced not in a Superman comic, but in the spin-off series Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Mannheim starts off as a pretty run-of-the-mill stereotypical gangster, trying to just stake a claim for himself in Metropolis, but eventually morphs into something very different and ultimately confusing. With no real powers unless you consider greed and brutality to be special, Mannheim was beefed up by DC when he was made leader of the Intergang, a worldwide crime syndicate that answers to no one other than Darkseid. Basically, Mannheim is this interesting amalgamation of some of the best villains out there, as he is known to go full-blown Hannibal Lecter sometimes, eating his enemies / subordinates that disobey him, and he also flip-flops between being a super genius like Lex Luthor to an overwhelming powerhouse like Darkseid. Yeah, I know, it's all a little bit confusing, so why not check him out for yourself so you can make some more sense of his character, starting with his first appearance in 1971's Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 139.
Number 5. Darkseid. I know what you're thinking, but Amanda, None of us are surprised that Darkseid is super powerful. It's, you know, kinda his thing. I know Darkseid is super powerful. But remember earlier on when I said that some villains are simply surprising because they happen to go toe-to-toe with Batman at all? Well, Darkseid is one of those villains. Because he's just so powerful, it makes little sense that Batman would even be able to face him. I'm not knocking Batman here, by the way, just acknowledging that he, at the end of the day, is just a very well-trained, skilled, rich man in a bat suit. So yeah. And yet he has also managed to defeat Darkseid on more than one occasion, which is only even more unexpected and surprising. But I guess it's these unexpected storylines that we find so exhilarating and help to sell comics. So when it comes down to why they were written, it actually makes a lot of sense. It's the unexpected matches that are the stories people get excited to write and fans get excited to read. Number 4. Harley Quinn. Harley is just unexpected because of, well, I mean, where she started from in the Batverse. She was introduced in the Batman animated series as Joker's sidekick and girlfriend, and she became such a fan favorite that she was made a regular there even though she was kind of intended to be a one-off character, and would eventually make her way into the comics as well. From there, Harley's popularity meant we'd see her win all kinds of victories, or at least almost win them, and in the animated series she'd also prove how dangerous she was when she came up with some of the most potentially successful schemes, which of course often irritated her partner in crime and her partner in life, Mr. J. Over the years, Harley has become so successful and powerful in fact that she has moved more and more away from being a villain and more towards heroic acts, with her now even becoming one of Batman's sidekicks in the comics. For a human, Harley is also shown being very strong, flexible, and durable in addition to being brilliant, often using her intellect or her unpredictable craziness to outsmart many of her opponents. Let's just remember that at one point she took on Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman all at once and was actually successful in that encounter. Number 3. Poison Ivy. I mean, we all know how powerful Ivy is at this point, but it should also be acknowledged that initially she was just a student studying to be a botanist who ended up being used in her teacher's/lover's twisted experiment. She then became something new, something deadly, the villain and creature we'd come to know as Poison Ivy. Ivy was initially shown to be immune to all poisons and was interested in crime for basically the sake of status and power, able to use pheromones and kisses to influence her enemies. The power of seduction. I don't know what this is. This is seduction, apparently. Since then, Ivy has come a long way at one point, even taking control of the whole world, controlling everyone's minds through plant life that they had consumed. She also became a full-on terrifying eco-terrorist, and since the very real and also fictional world of eco-horror continues to grow, so does Ivy's power and presence in the comics, especially now that she's returned to her more traditional, villainous ways. Which is also kind of unexpected, because she was down this hero path and then they were like, she's a villain again. And I was like, huh? Alright. Number 2. Karma. Just because you are considered a low-level thug, or in Fleet Delmar's case a supposed freedom fighter, doesn't mean you can't rise above your rank and become something greater. That is just what Fleet did. He ended up getting his hands on some alien tech that allowed him to move up to the next level when it came to his rank as a threatening and powerful Batman villain. He was supposedly apprehended by Batman years before, who had tormented him with fear gas as punishment for his crimes. It's pretty harsh, really. This experience apparently led to him losing his eyes and becoming blind, which is why he decided to seize the alien tech and use it to get revenge. The helmet he wore granted him psychic powers, allowing him to read the minds of his opponent and counteract their attacks easily in a fight. The helmet also allowed him to absorb energy blasts, which at one point allowed Karma to take on both Black Lightning and Batman at the same time. And then he went on to have a semi-successful career with the League of Assassins, so I mean he died, but still, pretty crazy for just like a low-level thug in my opinion. Number 1. Phantasm. Phantasm is of course unexpected given that she had a secret identity, and in the animated series we even expected her to be a he instead of a she, so that's pretty unexpected. Andrea Beaumont is also one of those very powerful and strong villains for the fact that she holds a lot of sway over Bruce Wayne, being one of his love interests as well. Not only that, but when it comes to many of her skills and her physical prowess, she is often shown to match Batman and be on a very similar level to him, which is of course quite impressive because Batman is pretty crazy. Andrea is also surprisingly more ruthless in comparison to Bruce, having no qualms with killing those who cross her, whereas Bruce typically holds back from killing, at least in the current continuity. In his original days, not so much. So not only does she potentially have him as an ally at times, but she also has all the skill, strength, and know-how to use their relationship and her knowledge of Bruce to her advantage when playing the role of antagonist.
Number 10. The Dummy. The Dummy was created in the 1940s and has faced Superman countless times. Now, he isn't just strictly a Superman villain, he has faced other superheroes as well. He's quite intelligent and uses a gun quite a bit. Not much else is known about his backstory, since it was never really revealed if he was actually a literal ventriloquist dummy or just something else. Number 9. Hobby Robber. So there isn't much about Hobby Robber either, which seems like a trend on this list. But he made an appearance in 1944 and was created by Jerry Siegel and Sam Citrin. So his history of Superman is simple, but very strange. Clark Kent apparently has a rare clock collection, and Hobby Robber steals it. Yep, it's pretty weird, but in the original multiverse he gets erased by Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I guess that clock collection disappeared as well? I guess we'll never know. Number 8. Klakok. Okay, I am very sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but you know what, we'll just move on. He is a villain and has the ability to grow double his size. He was a part of Superman's Revenge Squad at one point. Yes, apparently that was a thing. He obviously has this vendetta against Superman and has fought him from time to time. He hasn't appeared in too much throughout the comics, but being on a squad that has had members at different times like Bizarro, Parasite, Metallo, Lex Luthor, and even Superman himself. Yes, Superman himself was at a time part of the Superman Revenge Squad, but Superman was only part of it to help take down evil Kryptonians that were, led by none other than General Zod, so I guess it makes sense. Number 7. Sand Superman. Sand Superman got his powers by a combination of a few things. Superman's powers, sand, and psychic energy, which came from a dimension called Quorum. So, yeah, that's how we got this Man of Sand. See what I did there? He is quite the powerful foe, and if they are close, he can drain the Man of Steel's powers. The other crazy thing about how these two are linked is that the planet will blow up if they have any physical contact, since he can drain and consume Superman's powers. He even sort of turned good, wanting to save lives, instead of hurting them. Number 6. Mr. Zed. Mr. Zed is immortal and quite fascinated with famous people. So what he likes to do is travel, throughout time to capture famous people and his crystal, and that is on top of his cane, basically capturing their souls. He also has the power of hypnotizing people and resurrection. Of course, he became fascinated with Superman. When attempting to try and capture Superman into his crystal, he is unsuccessful due to where he came from and how powerful the Man of Steel is. In the end, his crystal explodes, freeing most of the souls that he captured throughout time. He has faced off with him other times as well, whether it was in the past or the present day version of himself.
Number 5. Darkseid. Darkseid is a tyrannical ruler, dread lord of the nightmare world Apocalypse. He exists outside the normal universe, in a realm known as the Fourth World. He has been called the God of Evil. His goal is no less than conquering all of creation and the entire multiverse. He seeks the anti-life equation, a power that will allow him to turn anyone into a mindless slave bound to him. He once kidnapped Supergirl, using black kryptonite to brainwash her into joining his all-women villain squad, the Female Furies, led by Granny Goodness, the cruel and evil lieutenant. Darkseid is one of the new gods from the Fourth World, who evolved in close proximity to a primeval energy along with superior technology and genetic stability. The people of this realm are immortal, stronger and faster than Homo sapiens, despite looking pretty much the same. Darkseid also wields an ability called the Omega Effect, allowing him to travel through time and space, as well as break barriers and force fields. His main power is his Omega Beam, energy blasts coming from his eyes that are capable of teleporting targets to another universe. He has complete control over his Omega Beams, and they can even change direction in the air. Number 4. Brainiac. Vril Dox, aka Brainiac, is an artificial intelligence created by the computer tyrants of Kolu, a world where knowledge and logic reign supreme. Brainiac was designed to conquer alien worlds, but he quickly became more and more intelligent, eventually becoming a villain that does whatever it takes to acquire more knowledge. He once shrunk down the entire city of Kandor into a miniature for himself to study. He also created a remote scout programmed to think it was the original Vril Dox. This scout came to the Earth and took over the body of a mentalist named Milton Fine, who worked under the alias Brainiac. Generally believed to be the most intelligent being in the DC universe, he possesses a 12th level intellect, making him even smarter than Lex Luthor. Interestingly, he was once defeated in the past through a sensory overload. Superman forced him into Earth's atmosphere, and he became overwhelmed by the germs and microbes of the Earth, as well as the wild sights and sounds of human society. Number 3. Doomsday. Doomsday was created on Krypton in the distant past, long before Kryptonians had dominance over the planet. In this early day, Krypton was a violent hellscape where only the strongest creatures survived. Doomsday was created by a scientist named Bertrand, who was trying to create the ultimate life form. His first experiments failed, and the test subjects dying on Krypton. Bertrand cultivated cells from the dead test subjects and infused them into the next one, repeating the process over 40 years. The life form possesses the genetic memory of its previous forms and therefore is immune to being killed in any way that it has died in the past. Unfortunately, this also resulted in the ultimate survivor becoming a relentless killing machine. Eventually, Doomsday confronts his creator and destroys him, escaping from the wastelands of Krypton. He has sharp, protruding bone claws and a whole host of superpowers, including most notably the ability to adapt to any attack. Doomsday and Superman once had a lengthy, violent fight in Metropolis that ended with what was assumed to be the death of them both. Number 2. Lex Luthor. Lex is undoubtedly one of Superman's greatest foes. A brilliant scientist and billionaire philanthropist, he is powerful and creative. He despises the Man of Steel for his alien heritage and considers him a threat to all of humanity. Over the years, Lex has been around, once even becoming president. He even had a position on the Justice League in the past. There's a genius dynamic between Lex and Superman, with Superman being an alien and achieving things that humanity never thought possible, and on the flip side, Lex Luthor is like peak human success. He's brilliant and rich and successful, but too arrogant and self-interested to use his gifts to benefit humanity. He was once reborn inside an immortal, half-Martian, half-human body, and in this form was known as Apex Lex, and was immensely powerful. Apex Lex can travel across infinite realities. He is vulnerable and nigh omnipotent, wielding the 7 dark energies of the universe. This guy was dangerous enough before. Luthor's combination of hatred towards Superman and near limitless power potential land him here at our number 2 spot. And now, number 1. Batman. Batman is a bit of a problem for Superman. Not only does Batman always carry kryptonite on him, just in case, but Batman is also the kind of dude who just does what he wants and is pretty hard to argue with. Batman and Superman have gone head to head many times in the past, with different results, but it's worth noting that Batman has defeated nearly every iconic comic character within recent years. It has also been said that Batman could defeat anyone given enough prep time. Similar to Lex Luthor, Batman is also a billionaire who isn't too thrilled about an alien flying around and destroying buildings with his superpowers. Superman versus Batman. These guys are two sides of the same coin. They want the same thing, but have very different ways of achieving it. Batman and Superman are heroes, but if there's anyone that could likely take down the Man of Steel, it's Batman. Number 10. Microwave Man. Also known as Louis Paget, we meet this villain in Action Comics number 487 in 1978. A space traveler, he returned to Earth after 40 years of flying through the stars aboard an alien spacecraft. Before he began his journey, he was already the costumed villain Microwave Man. Upon returning to Earth, he calls on his alien friends to grant him his youth back, but it comes at a cost. His life will be shortened to just a few hours. He says, yeah, I'm good with that. He just wants the opportunity to defeat Superman. So Superman agrees and even allows Microwave Man to defeat him in a test of strength. Louis dies satisfied and the aliens claim his body and they set him adrift in space. It's a touching story in which the villain is dispatched within 2 issues, meaning we will probably never see him again. It's nice though. Hey gang, before we hit number 9, I really need you guys to hit that like button. It's not required, I will continue with the list either way, but we do appreciate it. Number 9, Sand Superman. First appearing in Superman 233 in 1971, Sand Superman is exactly what he sounds like. Created from a portal between Earth and the Quorum dimension, Sand Superman just wants to drain Superman of all his power and knowledge. However, as it gains energy, he also gains the desire to act like Superman, including serving unselfishly as a superhero. Unfortunately, Superman can't really take him on as a sidekick or anything like that for two reasons. One, Sand Superman only gains power by taking it away from Superman. And two, if they were to actually touch each other ever, Sand Superman's alternatively charged atoms would just result in a huge explosion big enough to destroy the entire planet. Sand Superman's story was really not all that lengthy, so it's pretty easy to see why he hasn't returned. Coming in at number 8, J. Wilbur Wolfingham. He would call himself a business consultant or philanthropist, but make no mistake, he is a con man. Mr. Wolfingham first appeared in Superman 341 and was erased from existence following the collapse of the multiverse during the Crisis on Infinite Earth series. In his debut, he has a scheme to sell amulets which allegedly teleport the wearer to safety if a disaster strikes. Superman comes along and decides to put this product to the test. This all happens in a story called The Man Who Could Cancel Catastrophe. In another story called Sale of the Century, Wilbur thinks he's pulled off a master scam by selling the Earth off to an alien real estate agent until the alien actually comes back, and then of course Superman has to come straighten everything out. This guy is seriously a real piece of work, but we haven't seen him again since 1985. Coming in at number 7, Funny Face. We meet Funny Face in Superman 19 in 1942. Making him possibly the oldest villain on this list. In his story, Case of the Funny Paper Crimes, he brings some villains to life from a comic strip, including Machine Gun Mike and the Black Raider, and he sends these guys out to rob the stores of Metropolis in a super dastardly evil scheme. Just go out there and rob everything, you guys. Superman takes them on one at a time, eventually figuring out what's going on and that they've come from the funny pages. While Superman is busy, Funny Face kidnaps Lois Lane and transforms her from a real person into a comic book character. Superman forms up a team with some other comic strip heroes that have been brought to life, and together they rescue Lois and take down the villains. This guy last appeared in 1986, and I seriously hope we see him again. He's crazy looking. Oh man. Number 6, Mr. Jeez, is that an L in there? Anyway, the name is intended to be unpronounceable. We'll just call him Mixie. First appearing in Superman Volume 2 in 1987, Mixie is an imp from the 5th dimension who periodically visits and gives Superman a hard time. He first appears as a dashing young man by the name of Ben DeRoy and convinces Lois Lane to marry him. Superman eventually puts 2 and 2 together, and the imp agrees to go back home if Superman can get him to type, spell, or say his name backwards. Not Superman's name, but the other guy's crazy name. So, this evil, nefarious dude, he creates a giant typewriter and he makes up a name on the spot, choosing the name I mentioned earlier, figuring, oh, this is gonna be impossible for Superman. Superman defiantly says something along the lines of, "You couldn't even type that name forwards." And so Mixie does it and demonstrates, not realizing Superman has already rewired the typewriter, causing Mixie to write his own name backwards, vanishing himself. He once even tried to do nice things, granting people's wishes, but not in the right way. For example, a woman wishes that her dough would finally rise, and it fills her entire home, pouring out onto the street. Another scene has a bunch of people wishing they had a Riverview apartment, so he makes their building sprout legs and literally walk over to the river. This villain did appear in 2008, but I think he still counts as forgotten. And honestly, he's too bizarre for me not to mention.
Number 5, Ra's al Ghul. Ra's is known for being one of Batman's most deadly foes and one who is constantly matching and even threatens to beat Batman at times. While Batman is the master of planning with all his contingencies, Ra's has also managed to use this to his advantage, like during the Tower of Babel storyline when he hacked into Batman's files and used his perfect plans for his own machinations to neutralize the Justice League. In Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, Ra's, played by Liam Neeson, also proves how destructive he can be when it comes not just to Batman, but to all of Gotham, as Ra's al Ghul pushes the city to the brink of insanity, encouraging it to tear itself apart from his own influence and impending threats. Number 4, Deathstroke. Deathstroke is one of the most powerful villains for any hero that he comes up against. Slade Wilson is one of the deadliest assassins in the entire DC universe, and when he comes up against Batman, you can bet he'd kill him if contracted to. Deathstroke most recently took out Batman in a fight near the beginning of the Joker War story arc. He left Batman for dead, and Batman was almost wiped out as a result of his attack when combined with confronting the Joker. And let's not forget that Deathstroke wasn't even contracted to kill Batman here, so this wasn't even Slade at his most willful or powerful. He was holding back in that fight. His only aim there was to basically put Batman out of commission for a short while. Number 3. Bane. If we are talking about physical power, then it's gotta be Bane. And perhaps even mental power too. While the Harley Quinn animated series gives us a version of Bane who is not quite as bright and is kind of a lovable oaf, in the comics, Bane is also known for being a genius in addition to his physical prowess. Bane grew up in prison and used most of his time to get fit and study at the prison library as much as he could. When we think of Bane, we usually think of the man who literally took Batman out of commission for quite a while in the comics when he broke his back over his knee during Nightfall, prompting Batman to recruit Azrael John Paul Valley to take over for him in his absence. Number 2. Poison Ivy. Ivy is usually one that gets dismissed when it comes to Batman's most powerful villains, but let's not forget that she can control plants the world over, meaning in essence, she can take control of the world pretty much whenever she wants. During Tom King's run, we saw Ivy get her moment in the spotlight, proving just how dangerous she could be when she decided to take over the entire world and every person on it through plants. Ivy controls the beings of planet Earth, including powerful superheroes like Superman, through veggies that they have consumed as well. Eventually, Batman and Catwoman find a way to get through to Ivy, but this was also during a phase where Poison Ivy was basically slowly transitioning into a reluctant hero role. Imagine if Ivy had really been full out supervillain at the time, and if Batman didn't have Harley Quinn to help him get through to Pam. Number 1. Emperor Joker. You didn't really think I was gonna let Joker rest so low on this list, did you now? Granted, this point could also technically be combined with Superman villain known as Mr. Mixia's Pitlick, who gave Emperor Joker his powers during that story arc. However, Mr. Mixie isn't really a Batman villain, but Joker is, and when he tricked Mr. Mixie into giving him 99.99% of his power, he ended up becoming one of the most powerful villains ever to take on Batman. In fact, after the events of torturing Batman in his newly reconstructed version of reality, Batman was left a broken man when everything was reverted back to normal afterward, completely traumatized by the experience. Superman literally had to take Batman's memories of this event in order to fix him and make him well enough once more to resume his heroic duties. Number 10. Two-Face. Harvey Dent might just be a guy with a really bad acid burn, but he's also one of the most insane and powerful Batman villains out there. And a lot of this is actually due to his smarts and his instinct. Harvey, having two distinct personalities residing within himself, oddly enough seems to actually make him more in touch with who he is, because he's in touch with all the different parts of himself, I guess. It opens him up to all the possibilities and leads him to being one of the most observant villains around. Two-Face is one of the few who notices when Dick Grayson takes over as Batman following the death of Batman in the story arc Long Shadows. He picks up on the fact that this new Batman seems to smile at moments where the Batman that he's known for years would not. Two-Face manages to sneak into the Batcave, surprises Grayson, and then manages to capture and torture him. Two-Face also almost killed Dick Grayson years earlier, similarly to how Joker had actually brought Jason Todd closer to his death by beating him beyond bloody. I feel like that's something people don't credit Two-Face with a lot, but yeah, he almost killed Dick Grayson. That's pretty crazy. Number 9. Automatopoeia. Automatopoeia isn't a villain we've seen a ton of, but he's definitely one I would just love to read more about in the comics. Where is Automatopoeia? Bring him back! He was created by Kevin Smith and Phil Hester. He disappeared for a bit, but when he returned it was undercover in the Batman comic Widening Gyre as ally Baphomet. He successfully managed to convince Batman he was one of the good guys and infiltrated his home and the Batcave working alongside him. He even learned of Batman's true identity as Bruce Wayne. Batman was considering quitting, in fact, and actually letting Baphomet take over when Baphomet betrayed Bruce, revealing himself as Automatopoeia and killing his fiancée at the time, Silver St. Cloud. Jeez, that was a surprising moment. Pretty impressive stuff too. Before we get into that sweet number 8 spot, just wanted to say thank you for being here and also ask if you are enjoying this video that you help us out by clicking the like and subscribe buttons below. do it. It helps us out a ton, and if you haven't joined as a subscriber already, we would love to have you as part of our Nerd Squad. Thank you so much for your support. Number 8. Prometheus. Prometheus wasn't just a Batman villain, but was in fact a villain to pretty much all of the Justice League. In fact, he even managed to defeat them all, including Batman. Prometheus originally was out to take down any forces of justice who he sought revenge on after the death of his criminal parents, after they were basically gunned down in front of him, which, yeah, that sounds pretty traumatizing, and I kind of understand why he was like, I will get them. It's kind of a weird opposite version of Batman's origins actually when you think about it, except instead of Prometheus becoming a hero, he became a villain. Prometheus collected an immense wealth which he used to create tech to help him defeat the heroes, and he not only had his tech, but he also is known for possessing a brilliant mind. When he infiltrated the Justice League Watchtower, he not only defeated Batman, but most of the other members of the superhero team as well. Sayonara, Justice League. You down and out for the count. Number 7. The Outsider. Alfred makes almost as good of a villain as he does an ally to Batman when he becomes the Outsider. This villain was not only someone close to Batman and Robin, which obviously shocked them both, but was also revealed to be Alfred, after both teammates thought that Alfred was dead. Gasp! Alfred had sacrificed himself to save the hero and his sidekick Robin, but it turned out he wasn't actually quite dead yet, and he had been revived. During this process, however, he was brought back kinda wrong and was given superpowers as a result at the cost of insanity, which made him not love Batman and Robin but actually hate them instead. Some weird bizarro science. On Earth 3, the crime syndicate reality, the Outsider is actually a permanent supervillain, unlike our original Alfred, who ended up returning to his normal self. Thank goodness. Number 6. Hugo Strange. Hugo Strange might not be physically strong, but he is one of the original Batman villains and has been around in the Batman comics since day 1, appearing as early as Batman issue number 1 alongside Catwoman and the Joker. Hugo Strange was so deadly at that time in terms of the creations his experiments brought into existence, the Batman would likely not have even stood a chance, not a chance against him without his guns at the time, which back in those days Batman often fought with. What's more, Dr. Hugo Strange has also known of Batman's true identity since almost day 1 and is ruthless in his pursuit of the hero, often aiming to completely destroy and murder Batman. Originally, he actually wanted to do this so that he could take Batman's place. Kinda became obsessed with him. And I'm not going to lie, I would actually be interested in reading a run where that happens. Maybe a Tales of the Dark Multiverse story? Come on DC, give me that. I want to read that Hugo Strange Batman. Number 5. Azrael. Azrael is now more of an anti-hero, but for a while he made for a pretty great adversary to Batman. Jean-Paul Valley was the man that Batman trusted to take over for him after Bane broke his back. At first Azrael did a pretty good job standing in, but then he started to become kind of obsessive. He took things too far, becoming brutal in terms of how he dealt with and punished criminals who opposed him. In the end, Bruce had to fight Jean-Paul in order to get him to relinquish the cape and cowl. And in the Tales from the Dark Multiverse series, we're actually introduced to an alternate future on an alternate Earth where Azrael never was made to surrender the Batman mantle, and as such only became an even more terrifying, tyrannic ruler in Gotham over time. Although surprise surprise, he wouldn't end up being the worst. Azrael here took Bruce apart and kept him as a prisoner as a head attached to a robotic spine, which is pretty creepy, gotta say. Number 4. Scarecrow. Scarecrow might not be the most powerful in terms of physical strength, but he's definitely one of the most horrifying and effective villains that Batman has come up against in terms of making Batman lose his cool. His fear toxin typically drives Batman somewhat insane and has been seen as being so effective against Batman that we've also seen a similar effect come into play with the Joker's own Joker Venom. Over the years, the Joker Venom has become not just something that makes you crazy or makes you die of laughter, but something that also makes you hallucinate some of your worst fears. Now, why does that sound familiar? Yeah, Joker is basically ripping off Scarecrow. Not cool, Joker, not cool. I definitely feel like the Joker is just taking that inspiration from Jonathan Crane and then just putting it in his own formulas. It's actually probably just like copying part of his formula. So rude. Everyone's doing that actually. Everyone makes Batman afraid of things with their toxins now. It's all the rage, but Scarecrow did it first. He's a trendsetter. Number 3. Black Mask. Whether we are talking about Ewan McGregor's fantastic portrayal of the obsessive and sadistic Black Mask in Harley Quinn the Birds of Prey.
Listen, you're gonna get me my diamond. I'll give you till midnight. off that pretty face and pickle it. Okay?
The Under the Red Hood animated film version, voiced by Wade Williams.
He's dead. Take care of it. You. New guy.
Sir.
Don't be nervous, kid. But if you keep staring at me like that, I'm gonna cut your eyes out.
Or the horrific comic book version in all his depressing yet psychotic glory. Black Mask has to be one of the most influential, powerful, and twisted criminals around when it comes to Batman's villains. This is a man who forced Catwoman to kill him because he just took things way too far. Roman Sionis is also known for his immense wealth generally, which also gives him power equal to Batman when it comes to his gang, his reach, and his weapons.
All thanks to the robotic savvy of my main man, Taboo. Quit hogging the remote.
Number 2. Lady Shiva. Lady Shiva is even acknowledged by Batman himself as being the best martial artist in his opinion in all of the universe. Which isn't surprising as, you know, she's managed to effortlessly kick his butt before in the comics and has come kinda close to killing him in my opinion. Lady Shiva isn't always a villain in the comics, but when she is, even Batman is worried about the outcome of fighting her. In the fights we have seen in the comics, it's never usually settled as to who the clear victor and who the clear loser between them is, but odds are good that Lady Shiva is often not even giving it her all when it comes to her fights against Batman, because even Batman seems to sense that if she was, he would be toast. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Currently, the Batman Who Laughs is kind of one of the most powerful villains out there, period. He moved up from just being an alternate dark multiverse Batman to one of the biggest villains in the comics. This isn't just because he's so terrifying though, although he is that too, but it's also because of just how cunning he is. He almost beat Prime Earth Batman in a one-on-one fight, and then he managed to escape imprisonment when he was eventually apprehended, thanks to Prime Earth Batman actually getting some backup when he most needed it. From there, the Batman Who Laughs has become a massive villain whose existence threatens not just Batman's existence or the Earth's, but the entire multiverse, especially now that he also wields the powers of Dr. Manhattan, which is pretty OP. Number 10. The Joker. While the Joker is admittedly just a man, he obviously needs to at least make the cut because, you know, Batman is also just a man, but a powerful one. And while Joker has no superpowers to speak of, unless maybe we count his insanity or his 100% sanity, depending on what you're reading. But even without any true superpowers of his own, the Joker is still the perfect foil for the extraordinary man that is Bruce Wayne and Batman. If there is anyone who has taken Batman close to the precipice when it comes to losing himself to the darkness within, it is the Joker. Batman has been tormented on countless occasions by the Joker, and the Joker has succeeded in his plans to do so multiple times, usually in ways that hurt Batman through doing harm to those he cares for, such as when he brainwashed Tim Drake, shot and paralyzed Barbara Gordon, or when he killed Jason Todd. Number 9. Hush. While Hush might not be a villain who gets many wins, he's still one of the most passionate when it comes to his desire to completely obliterate Batman, and it's for that reason that Hush makes our cut. Hush is Thomas Elliot, one of Bruce Wayne's childhood friends, hell-bent on destroying him in adulthood due to his jealousy. Hush doesn't just have that personal connection with Bruce to give him an edge in comparison, he's also managed to manipulate other villains besides, using them as pawns in his own sinister plans to take down Batman and literally proving himself better than them as shown in the War Games storyline. And before we move on to the next number, if you are enjoying this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out, my friends, and thank you for those who have already done so. Number 8. Talon. There have been more than a few villains who have held the mantle of Talon, among them one of the deadliest being William Cobb. The Talons are the assassins of the Court of Owls who can regenerate and reawaken after years of slumber, seemingly returning from the dead. William Cobb is one of the most seemingly successful among their ranks. He is revealed to be the great-grandfather of Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and to have been responsible, apparently, for the deaths of multiple members of the Wayne family throughout the years. Number 7. The Penguin. The Penguin is not just known as the odd man out in his own origins, but also seems to often be the odd man out here at Top 10 Nerd when it comes to our lists, which is why I thought it was so important to include him here. The Penguin is one of the Batman's oldest villains who has has managed to stick around and resurface throughout the years. While he's usually remained more of a supporting criminal role when it comes to more recent Batman history, the Penguin, aka Oswald Cobblepot, has also remained one of Batman's most wealthy foes who uses his money to wreak havoc and create limitless gadgets and weapons, similar to Bruce Wayne himself. It's both his wealth and his knowledge of the criminal underground that make him such a powerful opponent. His ability to manipulate the criminal underworld of Gotham and bend it to his will while also remaining a public figure takes a different kind of strength. Honestly, I would love to see someone like the Penguin return to the spotlight once more as one of Batman's top villains. Number 6. Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight was a villain who posed a pretty huge threat to Batman in the Batman Arkham Knight 2015 video game. He was a frightening foe who had the wits and wealth to get his hands on and reverse engineer many of Batman's gadgets, to essentially put himself on the same level of power as Batman. In the end, the reveal for this character was somewhat disappointing as we learned that Arkham Knight was actually Bruce's former ward and sidekick, dun dun dun, Jason Todd. Jason ended up abandoning his plot to get revenge on Batman, but if he hadn't, he likely would have destroyed both Batman and Gotham in his role as the Arkham Knight.
Number 5. Black Rock. First appearing in Justice League America number 43 in 1990, Peter Silverstone was an American scientist, the Director of Research and Technology for the United Broadcasting Company. His task was to create a corporate-backed superhero that the UBC could provide exclusive coverage of. He creates a suit that gives the wearer power over broadcasting frequencies. The suit is powered by a mysterious sentient black stone. Silverstone manipulated his boss and his nephew into wearing the suit before he finally tries it on for himself. Sad to say though, after years and years of butting heads with Superman and losing, he becomes a washed up, failed villain who hangs out with guys like Kite Man. Eventually, he is driven mad by overuse of the Black Stone powers and winds up getting killed by Sam Benjamin, who then steals the stone and becomes the new Black Rock. Number 4. The Prankster. Oswald Loomis first appeared in 1988, the popular host of The Uncle Oswald Show, an early morning children's program. When ratings for his show plummeted and it was cancelled, Oswald totally lost it and went on a pranking spree, terrorizing Metropolis. He once even held Lois Lane hostage and tried to marry her. Later in life, he sells his soul to Lord Satanus, and this changes him, making him young and athletic. He is a manic trickster who uses futuristic technology to create gadgets and weapons, all while retaining a comical theme. This guy doesn't come up as often as other practical joke inspired villains such as Joker and the Riddler, so we haven't seen him for a bit. Number 3. Terra Man. When DC Comics rebooted everything with the New 52 in 2011, this guy was recreated to better suit a modern audience. But in 1972, he first appeared in Superman 249 as Tobias Manning, a desperado cowboy sent into the future. When he was young, he encountered an alien during his first holdup, while his father was recovering from a gunshot wound. The alien decides to take the boy and raise him for himself, taking him off into space and teaching him how to handle futuristic weapons. The alien, known as the Collector, also gave Toby a winged horse named Nova, which became his steed. He calls himself Terra Man and travels with the Collector, robbing and plundering all through space until his memories return, and one day he kills the Collector to avenge his father. He then travels to Earth, where he continues acting like a cowboy and performing nefarious evil deeds. He has some hilarious Western themed gadgets, including an energy lasso and a chewing tobacco capable of aging Superman. Number 2. Dragorin. First appearing in 1971, Dragorin is the man from Transylvania. Transylvania is a miniature planet Superman visits with his friend Jimmy Olsen in Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen, Volume 1. Man, wouldn't it be nice to be Superman's pal? He's literally just a vampire. We think the writers might have been phoning it in a bit on this one. Throughout the story, Superman and Jimmy encounter not only Dragorin, but a werewolf too. I really wish I had more to tell you about this guy, but there is a reason that he's a forgotten villain. And now, number 1, Zavam the Invincible. This dude appeared in Action Comics 351 in 1967. Zavam was created by the god of Olympus after they looked into the future and saw Superman, believing him to be a rival god. Zavam was built from clay and sent off to defeat the Man of Steel. Using godlike powers making him seemingly unstoppable, He becomes the leader of the United Crime Syndicate and humbles Superman. Superman is only able to finally defeat Zavam after collecting a magical belt from another group of gods led by Neptune. Zavam's name is an anagram in reference to the godlike powers he possesses, including Zeus, Hercules, Achilles, and others. He has not reappeared since his defeat, but it would be nice.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Punchline. Joker's new right-hand woman, that's all Batman needs. Punchline, aka Alexis K, made her first debut in Batman Volume 3, issue 89. She was a student of Snyder College, great name, who had an encounter with the Joker on a field trip at a film studio. She was forced to deliver his message as a news anchor by gunpoint. Not a great scenario. But luckily, Batman saved the day, but this only made her obsessed with the Joker, seeing that his crimes served a greater purpose than Batman's resolutions. She then started out the same way most entrepreneurs do, by making a podcast. A podcast dedicated to the Joker, that is. So she researched his crimes, got to know about his work, created her own costume, started poisoning people to get the Joker's attention, you know, all the necessary first steps. Got sponsored by Dollar Shave Club, you know, podcast things. Hashtag just podcast things. In Batman Joker War, she poisoned Lucius Fox. Then when Batman arrived, she was standing waiting for him in her brand new batsuit that Lucius was forced to make. She also put up one hell of a fight with Harley Quinn. Like seriously, she almost killed her with a stiletto. It's badass. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it helps the channel out quite a bit and also helps out. I'm in a closet. Please like this video. Thanks. You guys are the best. Now back to the list. Number 9, the Underbroker. Not to be confused with the Underminer, Harlan Graves, aka the Underminer, is a businessman and lawyer located in, of course, Gotham City, who runs a bank for criminals. Forgot to mention that part. He runs a bank only for criminals, which is pretty sweet. The Underbroker, of course, wears a fancy suit and mask. I mean, how else are you gonna fit in with the whole Gotham stuff? I mean, he looks ready to go to the club, but he also looks ready to crunch some numbers, okay? This is my kind of man. He rocks a suit day and night. So yeah, he's a broker for criminals. So he would help them store cash in hedge funds, and he's actually so good at his job that the Caped Crusader doesn't even know about his secret organization, the Underbrokerage. Cool name too. I mean, not that creative, but still nice. He actually once helped Catwoman transfer Batman's money to her account, but it was later revealed that he was just getting the account info for Joker. Super smart. This guy's working under the radar. Super smart, super evil, and super handsome. Probably. I don't know. What's under that mask? He made his debut in Batman Volume 3, issue 92. So if you're looking for a place to start, that's probably it. Number 8, Court of Owls. William Cobb, the Talon. He made his first comic book debut in 2011 back in Batman Volume 2, issue 2. The Talon is an assassin for the Court of Owls, and he claims to have killed several Wayne family members, including Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather, Alan Wayne, which in my opinion doesn't look too bad on a villain resume. He's like, hey, check this out. Recognize that last name? Yeah. He began his early days juggling baseballs on the streets just to get by after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane. So he would earn some cash and then sneak it into his mother's purse. What a gem. So far, so good, but you're also on this list, so it's gonna get worse. Then one day, somebody was watching his act and they got pickpocketed, so William Cobb hucked one of the baseballs at him, saving the day. The man offered him a job at the circus as a thank you, and he started using knives instead of baseballs to, you know, amp up the act, spice it up a little bit. And eventually, he met his love, Amelia. Now, back when he returned to Gotham, now a celebrity, Amelia's father didn't like the two in love, so he told William to beat it, get out of here. So Amelia at this time was actually pregnant. So Cobb joined the Court of Owls and became one of the Talons and went back to Amelia's house to kidnap his son, and then his son ends up becoming the Gray Son of Gotham, John Grayson's father. In the Court of Owls, it's the best. This is the best thing ever. Number 7, Mr. Teeth. Okay, this guy is gross looking. Just all bad. Making his first terrifying appearance recently in Batman Volume 3, issue 86, we meet Gunsmith and him. Okay, Gunsmith I'll get into a little bit later because he's equally as cool. But we'll start with Mr. Teeth because it's Mr. Teeth. So this mysterious man was actually a serial killer from Portland who was nicknamed the Teeth Eater. He didn't eat teeth. What he did was actually kind of worse, if anything. So he does this neat little trick where he takes out the victim's teeth and then puts them in their stomach. Yeah, it's kind of hard to forget a villain like this once he pops up. My nightmares remind me about his existence quite often. So we're good. He was hired by Deathstroke as part of the designer's plan to take out Batman, and at the same time take out some criminals who, you know, did him wrong on the way. Mr. Teeth is cool. He's actually a hater of his own nickname. He thinks people don't understand his art. Number 6, Gunsmith. Also making his first appearance in the same issue, Batman 86, he's an assassin for hire. Douglas Worth has worked for numerous military contractors and worked in the Middle East more than a handful of times. He's experienced, creative, and quite dangerous. So he got fired from all those jobs that I mentioned because he used experimental weapons without permission. He's made a name for himself because he can create weapons out of pretty much anything he finds, which already is a cool enough villain for me to put on this list. But yeah, he was also hired by Deathstroke as part of this team. So after Batman had attacked Deathstroke and took down the other team members, Gunsmith was imprisoned at the Black Block with the rest of the crew before Deathstroke freed them again. Again, a newer villain, but one that I think we'll be seeing more of, or I hope we will be, because Douglas is pretty cool. Number 5, Flashpoint Batman. Okay, in the Flashpoint reality, back in 2011, we got to see a world where Bruce Wayne had to become Batman, right? And rather, he was the one killed by the mugger in the alley, which of course led to Thomas Wayne suiting up instead. And sure, he was the hero in this reality, but it's the work that the same alternate Batman did in The Button, written by Joshua Williamson and Tom King, that puts him on this list. So Bruce Wayne and Barry Allen investigated this button in the Batcave, and this button is quite strange. So Bruce notices that since they found it after Wally appeared, it's been acting strange next to Psycho Man's mask. So they used the cosmic treadmill to track the radiation, and it led them to the Flashpoint universe. Again, it led them to the cave of that Thomas Wayne. Now at first he's confused. He fights Barry a little bit and then ultimately believes them and then fights off these Atlanteans and Amazons while the treadmill was being fixed. So they have a good moment or two, you know, talking father and son before getting back in the Speed Force. One of the last things he says to Bruce is, "Don't be Batman. Let the Batman die with me," which is very important. That's a pretty wild addition to the conversation, like last minute, eh? So this button led them there for what reason still? They didn't really know. They have no clue. Thawne is back. Now he has the button. What's happening? All the while, every time Thawne appears, he talks about this God thing, okay? This God creature. So Bruce is hanging out, repeating the words that his father said to him, still so curious what they meant. Well, later on after this event, it turns out Thomas Wayne was still alive and had been working with Bane in order to break Bruce Wayne, in order to make him give up being Batman. That's why he said that stuff earlier. He was planting those mental seeds nice and early. He even holds a gun up to Bruce, his own son, before Bruce knocks him out. I guess father-son time can be pretty hectic. Jeez. Number 4, Clown Hunter. Making his first appearance in Batman Volume 3, issue 96, Bao Pham is just a kid who stepped up to the plate when it came to taking back Gotham during the Joker War. Now, seeing his neighborhood being ravaged and torn apart by the Joker gang and having lost his parents to the Joker, he was pretty inspired to start beating people up, which is exactly what he did. He defended the innocent with a baseball bat, and he had a batarang attached in it to kill any clown that got in his way. That's right, kill, not knock out, the other K word, kill. So at the end of the event, he was confronted by Batman himself, who suggested to seek help and see a therapist. Coming from Batman, you're like, okay. He also offered to mentor Clown Hunter, but warned him that he would not tolerate the teenage Bao killing anybody else, no matter what their crime was. No kill rule, right? Okay. Clown Hunter seemed pretty interested in getting help, but only after his work was done. So he's like, sounds good, still gonna kill people. This guy's killed 24 people and he's only 17 years old. 24 people. So although his hatred for the Joker is pretty high and he's kind of on the right team, I would consider him more of a villain than an anti-hero. I mean, he's young, he's probably gonna turn into a villain. He is a villain, right? Can we talk about this? If Bruce tells you to go to therapy, he's probably onto something. That's all I'm saying. Number 3, Barbados. Also referred to as the Bat God, which sounds a little bit cooler. He resides in the dark multiverse. So the World Forger, of course, was set to watch over the vast universes, and while some of them held up, there's of course some worlds that were just naturally unstable. So what next? Well, they send a dragon named Barbatos to destroy it. Barbatos, not Barbados. Barbatos. That way the energy can then return to the Forge. Now, sometimes you like your job a little bit too much, and this was the case for said Bat God. See, he ended up killing his master, and he had a real taste for destruction after that. Ooh. Thus corrupting the Forge of Worlds. So now, with Barbatos not destroying these worlds and sending that energy back, these worlds ended up becoming part of the Dark Universe. Not too shabby at all. His journey begins, of course, with Dark Days, the casting, issue 1. Number 2, Batman Who Laughs. The Batman Who Laughs, aka Bruce Wayne from Earth 22, is a touch different than the one we know best. The Dark Universe is a special and vast place filled with alternate versions of characters, but one of the most notable has to be the Batman Who Laughs. So scared. Making his first appearance in the Dark Days, the casting, this Bruce Wayne has, of course, similar origins that we're familiar with. Parents were murdered, became a crime-fighting bat, protects Gotham, all the good stuff. But this Joker has changed his path up. See, Joker began murdering everybody in Gotham. He bombed a hospital, and then he shot the parents of the kids. Just awful, like he's the worst. Even worse than what you already imagined. And he's also dying from the same chemicals that made him become the Joker in the first place. So of course he wanted to take everybody out with him. Then Batman luckily stepped in and killed him by breaking his neck, but the toxins from the Joker were inhaled by this Batman, causing this monstrosity to happen. So a day later, he's joined by Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Red Robin, who were training in the Batcave, and the Batman who laughs just kills them all. Like, he shoots them all. It's crazy. And this is just the beginning of his terrifying reign. Dark Knight's death metal is actually a lot of fun as well. It's pretty recent, so if you want to see the insane laughing Batman, that's a good way to go. And number 1, the Joker. One of the best villains of all time, still going strong this decade and serving up fear in the most horrible ways. Like, for starters, we got to witness the events of Death of the Family, also written by Scott Snyder, released in 2013. We see the Joker make his return to Gotham City after having his face sliced off. Yeah, he had the doll maker give him the facelift of a lifetime while he was in Arkham Asylum, but it was all part of his master plan. He busted out, stole his face back from the police, after of course killing several of them, threatens to murder the mayor, kills John Claridge, kidnaps Alfred, all while wearing the horrible reattached face. So his actions were horrible, and he looked like he had a bologna slice with makeup all over it. So, well, he ends up kidnapping all of the Bat family members, and then he made Batman sit at this table with them all, as it's revealed what's truly on the menu, their own faces. Yeah, everybody has bags over their heads, and then underneath they were wrapped in bloody bandages. It's really horrible, but fear not, as this was only another cruel joke. Therapy not included. Then we also got to see the events of Batman Endgame, written also by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, released a year later in 2014. And it's a 6-issue miniseries where the Joker releases an airborne virus so that every citizen in Gotham is turned into these mini Joker maniacs, running around, flipping cars, lighting stuff on fire. Now, that already sounds bad enough to make this list, but it gets a lot worse. The Joker also uses this to make the Justice League members try and kill Batman. So Batman had to use everything he has to fight off his powerful co-workers. It resolved with both the Batman and the Joker having their memories wiped. But those images of Gotham citizens with those horrid smiles drawn across their face, that just lives in your head rent-free.